Across the U.S., grocery shoppers are noticing a quiet but undeniable shift in their local stores. Shelves that once overflowed with familiar staples now seem a little emptier. Prices are creeping higher, and favorite brands are quietly shrinking or disappearing altogether. It's not a sudden crisis, but a slow, steady change that's becoming harder to overlook. What's driving this? A tangled web of challenges including unpredictable weather patterns, outbreaks of crop diseases, supply chain bottlenecks, and shifting global trade policies. These factors are reshaping the way we shop and eat, creating a new normal where shortages don't always mean empty shelves, but rather fewer options, higher costs, and evolving food habits. In this video, we'll uncover the top 10 foods currently facing shortages in America and explore the reasons behind this growing trend. From pantry essentials to fresh produce, these changes are impacting households across the country. Let's dive in. 1. Beef. From everyday staple to luxury item. The American beef industry is grappling with one of its toughest challenges in decades, as the national cattle herd has shrunk to levels not seen in nearly 3 generations. Years of relentless drought in key ranching states, skyrocketing feed costs, and mounting financial pressures have forced ranchers to make difficult decisions. Many were compelled to cull their herds earlier than planned, creating a temporary oversupply in previous years. However, as those cattle moved through the system, the deeper issue of a dwindling herd became evident. Now, in 2025, the effects are fully visible. With fewer cattle available, beef production has dropped significantly, driving wholesale prices to record highs. Consumers are feeling the pinch at the butcher counter, where once affordable cuts like ribeye and tenderloin now carry premium price tags. Even ground beef, traditionally a budget-friendly option, has seen steady price increases, leaving cost-conscious shoppers with fewer choices. To adapt, grocery stores are shrinking portion sizes and introducing pre-marinated or pre-seasoned cuts to maintain the illusion of value. Products like marinated beef tips and stir-fry strips are becoming more common as retailers stretch limited supplies. Meanwhile, restaurants are reworking menus, with many reducing beef offerings or pricing steak dishes as high-end options. The root of the problem lies in the long timeline required to rebuild the national herd. Raising breeding stock, ensuring successful calving, and bringing cattle to market weight is a multi-year process. This effort also depends on stable feed prices, adequate grazing conditions, and financial confidence, factors that remain uncertain for many ranchers. Even with new processing facilities opening in beef-heavy states like Nebraska, the bottleneck remains the supply of live cattle. Without a robust herd, even the most advanced plants can't operate at full capacity. Experts predict that meaningful increases in beef supply won't materialize until at least 2026. Until then, beef is likely to remain a luxury for many households, reshaping traditional American diets and leaving a lasting impact on the food industry. 2. Dairy, a slow squeeze on milk and more. The U.S. dairy industry is facing a perfect storm of challenges that are reshaping how milk and dairy products reach consumers. For many farmers, 2025 has brought tough choices as rising feed costs and extreme weather take their toll. Poor grain harvests and disrupted global supply chains have kept feed prices high, while relentless heat in major dairy-producing states has reduced milk yields and strained animal health. Smaller dairy farms, already operating on thin margins, are being hit the hardest. Many have opted to sell off their herds rather than absorb ongoing losses, leading to a quiet but significant reduction in the national dairy herd. This decline is affecting not just milk for drinking, but also a wide range of products like cheese, yogurt, butter, and protein-enriched beverages. Shoppers are already noticing the impact. Shelves that once offered a variety of artisan yogurts, protein-packed milk drinks, and specialty cheeses are now less stocked, particularly in regions where supply chains are more fragile. Organic and value-added dairy products, which have surged in demand due to their perceived health and sustainability benefits, are especially affected. However, converting conventional dairy farms to organic is a lengthy and expensive process, often taking up to 3 years. This has created a gap in supply that imports and large-scale producers are struggling to fill. The scarcity of organic and specialty dairy products has driven prices even higher, making them less accessible to the average consumer. Meanwhile, industry leaders are exploring solutions, such as federal subsidies for feed and investments in whey processing facilities. Whey, a byproduct of cheese production, is increasingly used in protein-enriched snacks and drinks, offering a way to stretch milk supplies further. However, these changes will take time to implement. Building or upgrading processing facilities, securing funding, and training workers are long-term projects. In the meantime, consumers are facing higher prices and fewer options in the dairy aisle. Whether it's a missing bottle of Greek yogurt, a thinner selection of lactose-free milk, or a pricier protein shake, the strain on the dairy industry is becoming harder to ignore. Until herd sizes recover, feed costs stabilize, and new organic operations come online, the challenges in the dairy sector are likely to persist. For millions of households, this means adjusting to a new normal where dairy products are both more expensive and less readily available. Pre-rice, the unsteady grain. Rice, a long-standing pantry staple for millions of Americans, is now facing a precarious situation shaped by both global trade policies and domestic agricultural challenges. Once considered a reliable and affordable food source, rice is now under pressure as international restrictions and erratic weather patterns disrupt supply chains. Globally, India, the largest exporter of rice, has imposed strict limits on its exports of lower cope varieties to safeguard its domestic food security amidst inflation and uncertain crop yields. This move has sent shockwaves through the global rice market, leaving countries like the U.S., which often supplements its domestic supply with imports, scrambling for alternatives. Domestically, the situation isn't much better. Key rice-producing states like Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi have been hit hard by persistent spring rains, leaving fields waterlogged and delaying planting. This has not only reduced the total acreage planted but also created uneven crop development, increasing the risk of further weather damage during harvest. With domestic production falling short, the U.S. has turned to imports to fill the gap. However, with India's restrictions and tight supplies from other major exporters like Thailand and Vietnam, sourcing rice has become more expensive and time-consuming. This reliance on imports has made the U.S. rice market more vulnerable to global shipping disruptions, such as container shortages or rising freight costs, which can directly impact availability and prices on supermarket shelves. Consumers are already starting to feel the effects. Popular varieties like jasmine and basmati rice are becoming harder to find, while prices for long grain and medium grain rice are creeping upward. Store brands, which often rely on cost-feasible imports, are particularly affected, leading to fewer options and higher prices for budget-conscious shoppers. Adding to the strain is the increased burden on domestic transportation networks. With more rice arriving through ports rather than being processed locally, trucking and rail systems are under pressure to distribute supplies efficiently. Any hiccup in these logistics could further disrupt availability. Looking ahead, the outlook for rice remains uncertain. Even if weather conditions improve for the next planting season, there's no guarantee that India will ease its export restrictions or that global shipping challenges will stabilize. For now, rice, once a dependable and affordable staple, is becoming another item on the grocery list that's no longer guaranteed to be cheap or readily available. 4. Sugar, the sweet crisis. Sugar, a seemingly ubiquitous ingredient in American households and food production, is facing mounting challenges that are quietly reshaping its availability and cost. From delayed plantings to regulatory hurdles, the sugar supply chain is under significant strain, and the effects are beginning to ripple through the market. In the northern U.S., sugar beet farmers have faced one of the latest planting seasons in recent memory. Cool, wet spring conditions delayed field work, shortening the growing season and reducing the sugar content in harvested beets. This drop in efficiency has left refiners with less raw material to process, tightening supplies at a time when demand remains high. Meanwhile, in Florida, a key region for sugarcane production, heavy rains have wreaked havoc on crops. Prolonged flooding has waterlogged fields, stunted plant growth, and created ideal conditions for disease. Harvesting under these conditions is not only more expensive but also less productive, further straining the supply of raw sugar. Compounding these agricultural challenges is a stalled update to the organic sugar import quota. This regulatory bottleneck has left organic food producers scrambling to secure certified organic sugar, driving up prices in the specialty sugar market. Without an expansion of the quota, manufacturers are forced to either pay a premium for limited supplies or reformulate their products, a costly and time-consuming process. National sugar inventories have now dipped to their lowest levels in over a decade, creating a ripple effect across industries. Confectionery companies, bakeries, and beverage manufacturers are all feeling the squeeze. Many are locking in higher-priced contracts to secure supplies for upcoming production cycles, particularly for seasonal items like holiday candies and baked goods. For consumers, the impact is subtle but growing. Prices for sugar-laden products are creeping up, and some manufacturers are quietly reducing sugar content or exploring alternative sweeteners. However, for products where sugar is a critical ingredient, like candies, frostings, and syrups, substitutions are often not feasible, leaving manufacturers with little choice but to pass on the higher costs. Unless weather conditions improve and regulatory hurdles are addressed, the sugar market is likely to remain tight well into the next season. For now, sugar may still be available, but its days as an inexpensive and abundant ingredient are fading, leaving both producers and consumers to adjust to a new reality. 5. Egg supply on shaky ground. The U.S. egg market is once again under significant strain as highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, continues to wreak havoc on the nation's laying hen population. Commercial egg farms have been hit especially hard, with millions of birds lost to the virus, creating a supply chain disruption that can't be resolved overnight. While a recent influx of imported eggs, over 26 million dozen in just a few months, offered temporary price relief, the underlying issues remain unresolved. This brief reprieve is more of a stopgap than a solution, akin to releasing a pressure valve to avoid a full-blown crisis. In response, the USDA is exploring a national poultry vaccination program, a bold but divisive move. Many egg producers are advocating for the rollout, seeing it as the only viable way to protect their flocks and prevent future mass culls. However, parts of the meat industry are raising concerns about how vaccination might impact export markets, fearing trading partners could question the health status of vaccinated birds. This internal industry divide has delayed decisive action, even as the virus continues to evolve. Without a coordinated vaccination effort soon, the sector risks falling into a repetitive cycle of outbreaks, emergency imports, and fleeting price relief. Even if vaccinations begin this fall, it will take time for immunized hens to mature and for the industry to regain stability. Any misstep in vaccine distribution or a resurgence of the virus in key production areas could lead to empty shelves once again. Imports may cushion the blow for now, but they are not a sustainable strategy. Until a long-term solution, like a widely accepted vaccination program, is implemented, the U.S. egg supply will remain vulnerable to future disruptions. The coming months will be critical in determining whether the market stabilizes or continues to face high prices, low supply, and growing consumer frustration. Chicken market balances growth and uncertainty. The U.S. chicken industry is showing signs of recovery, with production numbers climbing as more broilers reach market weight and processing facilities ramp up operations. However, this recovery is uneven, as sporadic outbreaks of HPAI continue to disrupt regional supply chains. These localized outbreaks, though not always headline news, are quietly undermining production by forcing farms to cull flocks and temporarily shut down operations. Even small-scale disruptions ripple outward, causing logistical delays, tightening supply, and driving up costs. One unexpected outcome of these challenges has been a shift in consumer demand for different chicken cuts. Boneless, skinless chicken breasts, a supermarket staple, have seen modest price drops in many areas due to high production volumes and changing consumer preferences. Households and restaurants facing months of elevated meat prices are increasingly turning to more affordable and flavorful options like dark meat and bone-in cuts, including thighs and wings. Dark meat, prized for its richer taste and juicier texture, has surged in popularity, while wings have transitioned from game day snacks to everyday menu items in fast casual dining and home cooking. This shift in demand has driven up prices for these cuts, creating challenges for processors and distributors trying to adjust their output to match the new market dynamics. However, chicken production isn't easily adaptable. Farms raise whole birds, not just thighs or wings, leading to inevitable supply imbalances. Adding to the strain is strong export demand. U.S. poultry is highly sought after internationally, with countries facing their own food security issues importing large quantities of frozen dark meat and whole birds. This outbound flow reduces the domestic supply, further tightening availability for American consumers. Fast food chains and restaurants are also influencing the market by reformulating menus to feature more chicken-based items, particularly dark meat, as a cost-secutive alternative to beef. Chicken sandwiches, spicy drumsticks, and wing-based meals are becoming long-term menu staples, further driving demand. Looking ahead, there's cautious optimism for broader market stabilization by late summer, provided production rates hold steady and HPAI outbreaks remain isolated. However, dark meat cuts like thighs and wings are likely to remain in short supply and higher price due to sustained demand. Bulk buyers and food businesses will continue to feel the pinch, with uneven availability and elevated costs persisting until disease outbreaks subside and processors can better align supply with demand. For now, the chicken market remains a delicate balancing act between growth and volatility. 7. Coffee, brewing trouble in the global market. Coffee, a cornerstone of daily life for millions, is facing a storm of challenges that threaten its affordability and availability. At the heart of this crisis is Arabica coffee, the most popular variety worldwide, which has seen its market prices skyrocket to near-record levels. Earlier this year, Arabica futures surged to heights not seen in decades, driven by a perfect storm of production setbacks and logistical bottlenecks. Although prices have slightly eased since their peak, they remain significantly higher than last year, with no signs of stabilizing in the near future. A major factor behind this turmoil is Brazil's prolonged drought, which has severely impacted its coffee-growing regions, including Minas Gerais and São Paulo. These areas, critical to global Arabica production, have experienced below-average rainfall for consecutive growing cycles, leaving coffee trees stressed and underperforming. The result? Smaller harvests, lower quality beans, and a diminished supply of premium coffee. Efforts to mitigate the damage through irrigation have proven costly and unsustainable as water resources become increasingly scarce. Meanwhile, global shipping disruptions have compounded the problem. A shortage of shipping containers, coupled with rising freight costs and port delays, has made it harder to transport green coffee beans from farms to roasters. Smaller importers, in particular, are struggling to keep up, as unpredictable shipping schedules and inflated costs force them to either raise prices or cut inventory. These combined pressures have led to a looming global coffee deficit, with inventories shrinking and spot markets tightening. Analysts warn that traditional coffee powerhouses, like Brazil and Colombia, may not be able to meet global demand in the coming years, leaving the market vulnerable unless new growing regions emerge, a process that takes years to develop. In response, major coffee chains are working behind the scenes to absorb rising costs without alienating customers. Many are reformulating blends to include more robust beans, a cheaper but less desirable variety, while renegotiating supplier contracts to maintain price stability at the counter. For consumers, this means subtle changes in flavor profiles and service experiences, as brands prioritize trust over immediate profit. At home, coffee drinkers are adapting in their own ways. Sales of instant coffee and cold brew concentrates have surged, offering budget-friendly and versatile alternatives. Cold brew, in particular, has gained popularity for its smooth taste and convenience, with shelf-stable options becoming a staple in grocery aisles. As the coffee market braces for continued volatility, consumers and producers alike are adjusting to a new reality where their morning cup may cost more or taste a little different. Foams, stingers. 8. Orange juice, a squeezed market in crisis. Once a breakfast staple, orange juice is now becoming a luxury item as the industry grapples with a cascade of challenges. From biological threats to extreme weather and trade pressures, the U.S. orange juice market is under siege, with production volumes plummeting and prices soaring. Florida, the epicenter of American citrus farming, has been hit hardest, facing a dual assault from disease and climate events. Citrus greening, a bacterial disease spread by the Asian citrus psyllid, has devastated Florida's orange groves. Known as Huanglongbing, HLB, this disease stunts tree growth, causes fruit to drop prematurely, and renders the remaining oranges bitter and unsuitable for juice production. Despite aggressive measures like pruning infected trees and planting disease-resistant rootstock, the spread of greening has proven relentless, permanently reducing the productivity of affected groves. Adding to the crisis, Florida has endured a series of severe weather events, including hurricanes and heavy rains, which have further damaged citrus trees. These storms snap branches, uproot young trees, and create conditions ripe for fungal infections, making recovery slow and costly. For many growers, the combination of disease and weather has been a death knell, forcing them to abandon groves or exit the industry altogether. With domestic production at historic lows, juice processors have turned to imports to fill the gap. However, importing orange juice concentrate from South America and other regions has its own challenges. Rising tariffs and transportation costs have driven up the price of foreign concentrate, making it an increasingly expensive solution. Since concentrate forms the backbone of most orange juice products sold in the U.S., these cost increases are being passed down to consumers. The market has responded with significant shifts. Orange juice futures have more than doubled in the past year, reflecting both current scarcity and long-term concerns about supply. Producers are reformulating products to stretch their limited resources, often blending orange juice with apple juice, pear juice, or water. As a result, the percentage of pure orange juice in many products has dropped, leaving consumers with diluted options at higher prices. Shoppers, in turn, are exploring alternatives. Juice blends, flavored waters, and hydration drinks are gaining popularity, offering lower costs and lower sugar options that appeal to health-conscious buyers. In restaurants and hotels, orange juice is increasingly treated as a premium item, with smaller serving sizes and additional charges becoming the norm. Without breakthroughs in disease management or more stable growing conditions, the orange juice market is unlikely to recover soon. What was once a ubiquitous and affordable commodity is now a carefully rationed product, with its presence on breakfast tables becoming less routine and more of a considered choice. For both producers and consumers, the days of abundant, low-cost orange juice may be a thing of the past. 9. Lettuce, a salad staple in turmoil. California's round salad-growing region is facing one of its most challenging seasons yet, as unpredictable weather wreaks havoc on lettuce production. What started as a promising planting season quickly turned into a nightmare, with extreme heat, sporadic hailstorms, and persistent coastal fog combining to create a perfect storm for lettuce growers. These erratic conditions have hit two of the most popular varieties, Iceberg and Romaine, particularly hard. Both types of lettuce are highly sensitive to environmental changes, and the wild swings in weather have led to scorched fields followed by sudden moisture, creating ideal conditions for disease and crop failure. Even in fields where plants have survived, uniformity has become a major issue. Lettuce heads are maturing unevenly, forcing growers to reject a larger portion of their harvest. This lack of consistency is causing headaches for retailers and food service providers, who rely on predictable quality and supply. The challenges don't stop there. Viral diseases like lettuce mosaic and necrotic spot, which are typically kept under control through careful crop management, have become more prevalent due to the stressed conditions. These infections are not only reducing yields but also threatening the long-term health of the region's lettuce crops. Growers are now facing tighter margins and increased labor demands as they work to isolate infected fields and implement stricter biosecurity measures. Hope for recovery lies in the Salinas Valley's summer planting cycle, often referred to as the backbone of West Coast leafy greens production. If weather conditions stabilize, this region could help restore supply levels by mid to late summer. However, the transition from spring to summer fields takes time, and there are no guarantees when so much depends on unpredictable weather patterns. In the meantime, the shortage of Iceberg and Romaine has led to creative solutions in the supply chain. Distributors are turning to Arizona for alternative sources, particularly for hybrid varieties and pre-mixed salad greens that are more resilient. These blends, while less traditional, are helping to fill the gaps temporarily. Consumers may notice an increased presence of bagged mixes and specialty greens in stores, along with higher prices for whole head lettuce. Until the industry can adapt to these challenges, lettuce farming may face a future marked by greater volatility and uncertainty. Tomatoes. A squeeze on America's favorite ingredient. The U.S. tomato industry is grappling with a series of setbacks that have pushed processed tomato production to its lowest levels in over a decade. California, the heart of America's tomato processing sector, is experiencing a sharp decline in planting acreage, driven by a combination of water shortages, rising costs, and labor uncertainty. These challenges are creating ripple effects across the supply chain, impacting everything from ketchup to pasta sauce. One of the biggest factors behind this decline is the reduced availability of water in California's Central Valley, a critical tomato growing region. With water allocations becoming increasingly unpredictable, many growers have opted to scale back or abandon planting altogether. Tomato farming, especially for processing, requires stable conditions to be profitable, and the current environment is anything but stable. Adding to the crisis is the spread of the tomato brown rugose fruit virus, TBRFV, a highly contagious pathogen that damages fruit quality and reduces yields. Infected tomatoes often develop rough mottled skin, making them unsuitable for commercial processing. Managing this virus requires strict hygiene protocols and, in some cases, the complete destruction of infected crops, leading to significant financial losses for growers. Unpredictable weather has further complicated the situation. Heavy rains in the San Joaquin Valley delayed planting by several weeks, compressing the growing season and putting additional pressure on processing facilities. With fewer tomatoes reaching maturity, processors are bracing for lower production runs, which will directly impact the availability of tomato paste, diced tomatoes, and other essential ingredients. For manufacturers, this shortfall means renegotiating contracts or turning to imported alternatives, which are often more expensive and come with longer lead times. Consumers may not immediately notice empty shelves, but they will likely see higher prices for tomato-based products and subtle changes in recipes. Store-brand items may become harder to find, and restaurants may quietly adjust their menus to use less tomato or raise prices to offset costs. The tomato industry's challenges highlight the fragility of a system heavily reliant on one region. Without significant changes to water management, disease control, and labor availability, the future of processed tomato production in the U.S. remains uncertain. For now, consumers should prepare for higher prices and fewer options as the industry navigates this difficult period.